What's going on YouTube? JT is Reborn here, and welcome back to another edition of my DC comic book reviews. And in this video, I'm going to be talking about DC versus Vampires All Out War, issue number 5 of 6. Now, I will say one thing right off the bat that's entirely misleading. Where it says in the bottom right corner right there, also featuring Black Lightning, completely wrong. Black Lightning isn't even in this issue. So this is clearly some sort of like cover error with DC. The backup storyline is focused on a character known as Hawksmoor, which is a character I'm not really familiar with. So false advertising, misleading entirely. How do you mess that up? You're what, like a $1 million company, and you can't notice a glaring error like that before this goes out to print? All I feel like you need to do is saying also featuring Hawksmoor by so-and-so and so-and-so. How do you put Black Lightning on here? Does nobody catch these errors before they go out? Are things just kind of printed and it's like, okay, here we go, good to go? It's such a glaring error. Like, I can understand the description changing because those are solicitations printed months out. Things can change that way, but having such a glaring error on your cover that says also featuring Black Lightning when Black Lightning's not even in the issue. But anyway, so this is the All Out War, issue 5 of 6. It's done in that red, black, and white style, which, as I've stated before, is affecting my enjoyment of the series because there's instances where I can't really tell who is who. I wish this thing was colored like the normal issues of DC versus Vampires. I'd probably enjoy this storyline a lot more, and I could tell who's who, and I'd be more invested because time and time again, with this art style, I can't tell who is who half the time, unless there's a small amount of characters. But even then, there's moments where you'll have Slade hugging someone. I'm like, oh, did a new character come in that I missed? It's like, oh no, it's just Mary, because the art styles kind of tweaks a little bit at times, and the art and colors just, they're hard to tell who's who. But anyways, this is them. They're trying to resurrect, was it Batman? Written by Matthew Rosenberg and Alex Packnadel. They go to the Flash Museum to find a Lazarus Pit, comes back as a vampire. Slade gets bitten. Then we get Billy Batson versus Mary Marvel. Billy's, the vampire form, is in a Shazam form, and then his human form, it hasn't been turned. Whereas the opposites with Mary, her human form is a vampire, and then the Mary Marvel form is not a vampire. So there's a stark contrast there between the two of them, and there is a bit of an emotional, like, it's kind of heartbreaking ending too with their characters, where Mary during their fight has to call out Shazam, and Billy transforms back into his human form. Mary is still a vampire, and basically it's implied that she pretty much killed her brother Billy, which is a sad thing because she had to do something to stop Shazam, the vampire Shazam, but then unfortunately when she said the word, she reverted back to her vampire state. And it's a real tragedy. It's got some emotion behind it, and it leaves it on a bit of an interesting cliffhanger for the final issue of All Out War, before next month when we get into the final issues of DC versus Vampires. Hard to believe we're at the very end of the storyline. I'm gonna have to go back and reread the entire thing before the final issues come out. But like I said, the issue is the colors with this black, white, and red. Sometimes it's visually interesting and looks kind of cool, but other times it just makes it hard to tell who's who. And overall, I'd say I wouldn't really recommend DC going forward with this same color palette of this story. Maybe they're trying to go for a bit of a Sin City vibe, but I still feel like with Sin City I could tell who's who because maybe it's just the live action real actors in place, but that's just me. And then in the backup storyline, there's focused on a character of Hawksmoor, and that this is a character I am 100% sincere when I say I have no idea who this really is, but it kind of ends with them having, like, there being a baby or something. So that's written by Danny Lore. I apologize, I'm not familiar with this character at all, so I'm going to kind of skip over this. So maybe if you're familiar with this character of Hawksmoor and that, you probably appreciate it more. Basically, there's some vampire comes in. It's still set in like the DC versus Vampires All Out War world, and it's still done in that same art style. I suppose it's fine, but since I don't really know the character much, I'm kind of out of the loop per se. So that I'm just giving you honest thoughts. I don't really know who that is. So that's the first time in a long time. I mean, there's a lot of DC characters in this thing. I was promised Black Lightning on the cover, so cut me a little bit of slack. I was thrown off with this other character who I'm not really familiar with. So yeah, there's that. But anyways, DC vs. Vampires All Out War, there's still some pretty good stuff in here. Some things are a little underwhelming, like the fact that Slade and them went all this way to bring this body back from the Lazarus Pit, and it ultimately went nowhere. and they just kind of don't really have much of a reaction to it. But the strongest point of this issue is, of course, Mary Marvel. I think she's been really good in All Out War. She's honestly been one of the standouts of this thing, and that final confrontation between her and Billy does have a lot of heavy emotions behind it, and the real tragedy of it all, where one of them, what she's about to do, basically cost her brother in the process, but she had to stop him to give the heroes, or really, heroes is a strong word, to give the humans, or the remaining non-vampires, a chance to kind of go forward. So I like that aspect of it. Still have issues with the color palette and all that. I think this series would be a lot better if they would have just went with the colors that are on the cover right here. If the whole series was done in this, I think it would be a lot stronger. I think the stylistic thing was an interesting choice, but after 5 issues, I think it didn't really hit the mark the way they hoped it would. Maybe a few pages could have done that, but the whole series in that style, it just sometimes makes it really hard to tell what's going on. I think that's at the detriment of the series. But anyways, those are my thoughts on this particular issue. Let me know what you thought of it in the comments section down below. Be sure to come back later on today, and I'm 100% sincere when I say this. I will have my last comic book review of the day, which is going to be Batman Superman World's Finest. I figured I'd end on a high note this week, and although I wish I could have gotten that video out earlier, a few days, when there's 6 comic books in the same week, and sometimes I can't always get to them, but look forward to that. That'll be out later on today, and then I should be all caught up with these comic book reviews for the week. So look forward to all that stuff. All right, well, that's all I gotta say. As always, take care now. Bye bye then, and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace.